Hello, everyone. I wanted to finally give my thoughts on the fin. I kind of just talked about it um, so that people would understand the true nature of the fin. People were literally jumping the gun when the fin first came out. So now here's my detailed explanation regarding the fin and its stats. Okay, in order to understand where I'm going with this explanation, we need to talk about damage ranges and multipliers. So, as you've probably seen from my prior videos, every gun has an effective range and, um, damage drop offs. But each gun's damage profile is completely different. So, in the case of the PKM, it's upper torso and head. Now, you'll notice that if it's not hitting upper torso, it's 31 damage. But if it's hitting upper torso, it's 34. So, whenever I look for a gun, I'm looking for more than just the time to kill, bullets to kill, damage drop offs, and all that. I'm also looking at the damage profile because weapons like the S87, as you can see, are going to be a bit easier than the PKM due to the fact that its damage multiplier is the entire torso. It's not restricted to the upper like the PKM. Um, so, in that regard, the S87 is a little bit better than PKM just because it has more places for the multiplier to apply. Even though that its time to kill is going to be less than the PKM. So you just have to keep those factors in mind. So with that all explained, let's go and look at the fin again. So this time I have better slides to work with. So I've determined that the fin really just doesn't do a good job at range. So the only way I can see a fin working is if it's on its adverse barrel, but the problem with this is in order to get its ranges to reasonable levels, you're going to have to use either the Pro Twist or Long Shot. The Long Shot has the highest penalty as far as I can tell. Pro Twist has the least amount for a ranged barrel. So I would say if you're going to go adverse, use Pro Twist. But even then, look where its ranges fall. It's just barely past 25 meters. And that's not really good considering the RAM is going to be about there. Now, it is true that the RAM does not have the time to kill of the fin, but you have to understand that the RAM has better range values just because of it having a lower base ADS. It can take an ADS penalty. And then to top that off, the RAM does also have access to attachments that lower the ADS, whereas the fin doesn't really have access to too many um, attachments to lower that ADS. So short version is the RAM ends up having better ADS values and some other things, reload time being one of the many. So yeah, while the RAM can lose to a fin at closer ranges, I mean it's just more better. Well, it's better stats overall in the RAM. So for that reason, I'm not going to do a fin build. I just think there's too many things going against it here, and also because if I have to consider the person's skill on top of that. Um, so if you look here, this is a Pro Twist adverse. You can see its recoil is actually kind of annoying. And I can tell you right now that a lot of people aren't going to be able to control that recoil pattern, or at least want to learn how to control that recoil pattern. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going against the fin, is the short version. Not just on a numbers level, but also on other factors. So, yes. With that discussed, I want to go ahead and quickly talk about the AK again. So, I've been experimenting more or theorizing more with the AK. I've come to the conclusion that you can run the AK on the 30 round magazine, but you would have to treat it like the PKM, in which that you're going to have to be behind cover and use it only at a distance. If you're behind cover and using the AK at a distance, and you're aiming well, then you won't have to, worry about having a 40 round magazine because even though there might be a discrepancy in the data, and we'll go over that in a minute, The AK can take as little as 6 rounds to kill somebody. So you certainly will have enough rounds in a 30-round magazine to kill people if you're good about it. So now that I'm kind of aware that you can do it with a 30-round magazine if you're good, I've kind of shifted my attention now to the Romanian barrel, because you'll notice the Romanian barrel has very good recoil control. I mean, you could still do it on the RPK, but I'm going to be using the Romanian barrel on the builds, and I'll change it for in a bit. But yeah, I am going to be removing to the Romanian barrel. Now, as far as AK versus Oden, because you'll notice that the AK has a similar damage profile to the Oden. They're both upper torso and head. So, and actually, by the way, that's the same as PKM. But you'll notice that the Oden has higher base damage at 48, whereas the AK is only 35. So, as far as people with not so good aim, I think the Oden would be a better bet than the AK. Just because of the fact that it's going to be doing higher damage if you're not hitting this upper area, which you really should be. But if you're having issues, I would say Oden, and if you're even lower skill than that, I would say S87 for a ranged automatic. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I've relooked at it, and that's kind of what I'm thinking now. Okay, so let's talk about the discrepancy in data. Okay, so for the longest time, I've been following a test pattern. That test pattern has always lined up more or less with what Exclusive Ace has done. It hasn't been exact, and usually my numbers are higher than Exclusive Ace's, but it's fairly close. So I've kind of chalked it up to maybe user error or something like that, because I am one person, and I can make mistakes. And when I make a mistake, I will admit to it, as people have probably learned on this channel. At the end of the day, I believe that owning up to a mistake is a lot better than just ignoring it. It's dishonest, and I think that it should be addressed. But anyways, yeah, so you'll find that I'll quickly own up to mistakes. So there has been a discrepancy in the data between my test patterns, Exclusive Ace, and now this new thing I'm learning about, True Game Data. So I've talked to the person who's behind True Game Data a little bit, and it would appear that they do have a different test pattern than I do. They're apparently using a 240 hertz monitor, which is not something I have access to. I don't really have a lot of money, and I'm to an extent reliant on either spare parts coming my way or having some help getting new parts. So, I can't really get access to the best of the best, because for one, I'd have to ask for it, and B, it's also the middle of coronavirus. So even if I could, or I should say wanted to change things, then there's just so many things against me right now. The whole asking part was already against me, but now coronavirus to add to that. So yeah, they have a 240 hertz monitor, and I'll never be able to get to there, because that's just too much. But yeah, so if their test pattern is something I can't test, then there's no way for me to determine what's true or what isn't. I will say that my interactions with some of the other people in the community were a bit questionable. Everybody is entitled to their own opinions within reason. Let me be clear about that. But one of their community members was saying the AK sucks, and that's not true. The AK is actually a very good AR, is just higher skilled weapon. So yes, there's not going to be very many people that can use the AK, and I acknowledge that. But if you can learn the AK, it actually is a really good weapon, just because of the fact that it has virtually no damage drop-off. I mean, yeah, there's some on the numbers in, but it takes 6 bullets even at 100 meters to kill somebody, which is phenomenal for an automatic, because most automatics require more than 6. So, yeah, I don't think the AK sucks. I just don't. But yeah, and I'll be fair that I've ran into this more more than enough time. So this community over here, this is not the first time I'm dealing with it. I will always say the AK is fine to a skilled person. I will always say that because until they change or nerf the AK, it is a very good ranged AR, at least on a numbers level. That's actually another reason too that I'm switching to the Romanian barrel, because I recognize that you have to hit this small area, just like the Oden and the PKM. So yeah. Anyways, got a little off track there. So if this person's data happens to be more accurate than Exclusive Aces or mine, then I will just simply link people to that website. From there, I'll just link you the builds that I think are appropriate for each gun, and then let you find the stats from the website. Assuming that, that's all accurate and stuff, but yeah. And then let's just say that this is indeed accurate. Then that begs the question, do consoles have an advantage over computers? PC players, I'm sorry. Actually, here, let me explain it this way. So, speedrunners with Resident Evil, and I forget which one, I think it's Resident Evil 2 Remaster, but I could be wrong. It was proven that the knife performed better at higher frames. So for that reason, speedrunners had an advantage on the PC over the console because they could abuse the extra frames to make the knife better. In that regard, I'm wondering if something is occurring here with Call of Duty, in which that consoles are, well, I should say, I'm wondering if something similar is happening, because if consoles have better ADS times and things due to them being on a lower frame, then it seems like to me they have an advantage over PC players in certain areas. I can't confirm this because I don't play console, but I've been told that recoil control on console is a lot harder than PC. It's probably why the AK gets trashed on, but I get a feeling that's kind of an excuse, but I could be wrong. So, there might be areas like that where consoles just don't have an advantage, but otherwise they do. So, yeah, somebody is going to have to deep dive into this. Somebody who has far more time and capability far more time and equipment than I do. As much as I would love to test all of this, I just don't have the ability to do it. Assuming that their test pattern is using equipment that I will never have access to. So, yeah, for now, I'm just going to halt on any updates to my Google Documents until somebody can clear this all up. So don't expect any videos or updates from my document until this matter has been resolved. That's all I have. Thanks for listening.